If you've ever studied the improvised side of World War II logistics, the kind of field ingenuity that never made it into textbooks, you know that soldiers often had to rely on pure grit and creativity to survive. Supply lines broke down, standard-issue gear ran out, and the comforts of camp life vanished overnight. Yet, out there in the mud, soldiers didn't fold. They adapted. One of the most fascinating examples of this resourcefulness was how they made waterproof tents out of scrap canvas, discarded tarps, and even fuel grease. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. And in a war where exposure could kill faster than bullets, this skill often meant the difference between life and death. The need for makeshift shelters was born from desperation. In the chaos of war, especially on the Eastern Front and in the Pacific jungles, standard-issue tents rarely made it intact. Many were lost to bombings, burned, or simply rotted away under weeks of rain and humidity. Soldiers on the ground had to improvise fast. When supplies stopped coming, they scavenged whatever fabric they could find: cargo covers, sandbag material, or even pieces of destroyed vehicles' upholstery. The goal wasn't comfort, it was survival. During the Battle of Anzio in 1944, for instance, Allied soldiers faced relentless cold rains without proper tenting material. Reports from field journals show that they began salvaging torn canvas from supply trucks, lashing them together with parachute cords and coating them with a mixture of grease and ash to keep the rain out. What began as desperation soon became standard field knowledge, passed between units like an unspoken code of survival. Turning scrap canvas into a usable shelter took skill and practicality. A standard piece of scrap canvas, especially if salvaged from vehicle covers or sandbags, wasn't waterproof. Soldiers learned to stretch these fabrics tightly across makeshift frames of sticks, branches, or rifle poles. The tighter the weave, the better the protection. But the real magic came from the coating, an improvised waterproofing blend that combined whatever was available. Media Group, WWII soldiers mixing grease and soot for waterproofing canvas, field improvisation of waterproofing materials, grease, soot, fuel. Stock, distribute, equally, grease, fuel, residue, and soot. To make it work, they would first heat leftover grease, or used motor oil in a tin can, mixing in ashes from the campfire to thicken it. The result was a dark, tar-like paste. With rags or brushes made from bundled grass, they spread this mixture over the fabric in layers. Once dried in the sun or near a fire, the canvas became remarkably water-resistant. In colder conditions, the grease stayed soft, preventing cracking, while in the tropics it repelled the constant moisture and insects. In field manuals recovered after the war, there are mentions of similar methods being adopted officially in makeshift repair units, particularly in Burma and New Guinea, where tropical downpours could collapse a camp in minutes. Soldiers often joked that if you couldn't eat it, burn it, or shoot it, you could at least coat your tent with it. Fuel grease became the ultimate waterproofing material when nothing else worked. In the field, fuel grease was as valuable as gold. It wasn't just used to lubricate weapons or engines, it became a multi-purpose survival tool. Mixed with soot, animal fat, or even melted candle wax, it transformed ordinary cloth into a weatherproof barrier. This wasn't theoretical. Diary entries from American and British engineers recount entire camps being built using nothing but tarpaulin scraps treated this way. The process was as simple as it was effective. Once soldiers collected enough grease, they'd heat it slightly until soft, then spread it thinly across the canvas using anything from the back of a spoon to a stick. The first layer soaked in, while the second and third built up a slick outer shell. When rain hit it, the water simply rolled off. Some even added fine sand or dirt to the final layer to reduce glare and make the material blend with the surroundings, which was crucial in open field operations where any shine could attract enemy fire. You know, this same principle is still used today by survivalists and bushcrafters who waterproof tarps and clothing using animal fat, beeswax, or even petroleum jelly. For anyone caught outdoors without a tent, understanding this process can really make the difference between a dry night and, well, hypothermia. A typical World War II field tent made from scavenged materials didn't look like much, but it actually functioned exceptionally well. Soldiers used rifle poles, branches, or even bayonets driven into the ground to create the tent frame. Then, using ropes cut from parachute cord or strips of uniform fabric, they'd lash the canvas tightly across the frame. In wet conditions, they learned to pitch tents on slight slopes or over trenches to prevent water pooling underneath. To anchor the setup, they used stones, sandbags, or ration tins filled with earth. Ventilation was added by propping one side open just a few inches, an important trick to prevent condensation build-up that could make the inside as wet as the rain outside. This combination of resourcefulness and practicality made the difference in countless campaigns. Soldiers didn't just survive under these makeshift shelters. They slept, planned, wrote letters, and healed wounds inside them. In many ways, these tents became symbols of resilience. Proof that when everything else failed, human ingenuity carried the day. The techniques soldiers used in the 1940s are still, relevant for anyone interested in survival, camping, or bushcraft. If you're ever caught without proper gear, you can actually replicate their methods using modern substitutes. For instance, old tarps, denim, or even thick cloth can be waterproofed with a mix of wax and oil. A small pot, a campfire, and a bit of time are really all you need. To apply the method, just heat a blend of beeswax and vegetable oil until it's melted, brush it over the fabric and let it dry in the sun. You'll have a water-resistant tarp that works on the same principle as those World War II shelters. You can also treat cotton clothes or shoes the same way to make them weatherproof. These skills aren't just nostalgic. They're practical lessons in sustainability and self-reliance. The soldiers of World War II didn't have YouTube tutorials or fancy gear. They had necessity, and necessity breeds innovation. Their ability to adapt using fuel grease, ash and canvas scraps really stands as a lesson in human endurance. When everything around them was destroyed, they built shelter with what remained. For today's survivalists and history buffs, these methods are more than curiosities. They're reminders that the strongest tools aren't found in stores. They're forged from creativity and determination. Whether you're camping, preparing for emergencies, or studying wartime engineering, these old tricks remind us that resilience isn't about resources, it's about mindset. So, the next time you're out in the field and the weather turns foul, remember how those soldiers survived with nothing but scrap and grit. Their legacy of improvisation still offers lessons worth learning today. For more deep dives into forgotten wartime innovations and the survival skills that shaped history, subscribe to the Relic Logic channel and share this episode with fellow history enthusiasts. Every like, comment and share keeps these incredible lessons from fading into the past and ensures that the ingenuity of those who came before us is never forgotten.